Welcome, everyone. South Huron Committee of Adjustment, call to order at 5 p.m. First order of business would be to appoint a chair.
I'd like to recommend Member Neeb as chair.
Would there be a seconder to that motion? Member Dietrich? And Member Neeb, do you accept? Okay. All in favor? 3-0. Chair Neeb.
All right, we'll move on now to the appointment of the vice chair. Would anyone like to be the vice chair of the Committee of Adjustment? Okay, Member Oak, do I have a seconder? Member Dietrich, all in favor? Okay, and that motion carries. Move on to item number 2, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures at this time? No. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3, approval of the minutes. And I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer to read that recommendation.
The South Huron Committee of Adjustment approved the October 17th, 2022 minutes as printed and circulated.
Okay, do I have a mover? Moved by Member Dietrich and a seconder. Member Oak, Vice Chair Oak, all in favor? Okay, and that motion carries. And we'll move on to purpose of the meeting, and I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer to read that.
The purpose of this public meeting of the South Huron Committee of Adjustment is to allow the presentation of an application for minor variance and to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments with regards to the application. Written comments must be submitted to myself, the Secretary Treasurer of the committee, and should any members of the public like to be notified in writing of the Committee of Adjustment's decision on the application, they are to contact me directly and provide their name and mailing address to be added to the registry.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 5, minor variance number D13-MV01-2023 Robinson. And I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer to read the notice.
The notice for minor variance application Robinson was sent on May 26, 2023 to property owners within 60 meters, 200 feet of the subject property and to agencies requiring notice.
Thank you very much. We'll move on now to the planner's report. Welcome, Craig, and anytime you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Neeb. I'll begin by sharing my screen. Appears that has worked correctly, which is great. You did identify the file number and who the applicant was. I'll move on to the second slide, which is the purpose of the application. This is for a proposed detached garage. The garage is about 2,000 square feet in size. There's 2 variances, one to increase the height from 6 meters to 8.2 meters, and second to recognize the size of the garage. And the specific provision is one that limits the total size of all accessory buildings on the property. There's another garage on the property, so this would increase that permitted area to be occupied by all of those buildings from 50% of the house area, or about 86 square meters, to 147%, or 251 square meters. The next slide shows the property outlined in green, and then the location of the proposed garage is outlined in red here. You'll notice this property in relation to the neighboring properties, it's about twice the width. It's a double lot compared to the surrounding properties. And I would also point out that several of the abutting properties are much larger than this one in terms of the houses that they have on them. This is the house of the subject property. And then if you look to the west, there's 2 much larger houses. That's important because the area of all the accessory buildings permitted is limited to 50% of the house. So the smaller your house is, the less size you can have for accessory buildings. So we have a small house on a very large lot in this case. And the lot itself has a commercial zoning, village commercial. It does permit the existing residential use as well as accessory buildings to that use. The proposed garage is proposed to be used to store the owner's vehicles. That includes a recreational vehicle, cars, and a truck. Those vehicles are the reason for the height that's needed. They need to be large enough to get the RV in there. And that also in terms of size, because he does have a number of vehicles. And finally, before leaving the air photo, I point out that there is a row of trees on this side of the proposed garage, all across the rear of the property line. And then there is trees along the east side. Remember, these photos are taken in early spring, so you don't have leaves on the deciduous trees at that point in the year. And there's also trees across the front of the property as well. And the trees across the front of the property, you can see better in the photograph. This is standing on Crediton Road, looking to the south. You can see the existing house on the right of the photo, the existing garage. There's the motorhome, the recreational vehicle. And then the location for the proposed garage would be behind these trees, tucked away in the back here. The applicant did include a sketch. This would be the Crediton roads at this portion. So north is actually to the bottom of this drawing. But you would come, this mirrors what we saw with me standing on Crediton Road looking south. So this is the driveway, the existing garage, existing house, and you can see that the proposed garage is proposed to be put well back on this large, deep lot, but still well away from any of the property lines, much farther than what is required by the zoning bylaw. The garage itself, it's a fairly simple garage, as you would expect. It has two large overhead doors, man door on the side towards the house, and then some smaller windows as well. In terms of comments received, we did receive a letter of support of the variances from one of the neighbors, the neighbor across the road and a little bit further to the west. There were no other public comments received. There were no concerns from municipal staff, and since Crediton Road is a county road, there were no concerns expressed by County Public Works. In terms of the 4 tests for a minor variance, the first 2 tests are related to are the variances minor and desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land. As I mentioned, the garage is located in the rear portion of this deep property, well away from those side and rear property lines. It's not going to appear significant when you're looking from the street up at Crediton Road or from any of the neighboring properties, especially with those existing trees on all sides. And I mentioned this is commercial zoning for the property. So if this had been used for a more commercial type use of the property rather than residential, a garage of this size would not appear out of place either. So larger commercial buildings are contemplated in the zoning bylaw for a property, especially a property of this size. The third test is related to whether it maintains the general intent of the official plan. Property is designated urban, which does contemplate residential and or commercial uses on a property like this, and this doesn't change that. It's still a residential use. And then the final test is whether the variances maintain the general intent and purpose of your zoning bylaw. As I mentioned, the zoning permits both a commercial use and also recognizes these residential uses and allows them to have accessory buildings. The garage's size is due to the vehicles, the accessory vehicles that the owner has in terms of their size, both height and size in terms of the RV, and it will still be accessory to the main residential use. So with that, I believe all 4 tests are satisfied, and it's recommended that the application be approved with 2 conditions. One, that garage be located as shown on the sketch, so it's tucked back in the lot where it will be screened. And then second, that the variance approval be valid for a period of 18 months from the date of the committee's decision. Chair Neeb, that's my report.
Thank you very much, Craig. We'll now move on to public and committee comments. And is there any members of the public that are on the meeting online today?
Kathy Vaders, the applicant, is online.
Perfect. Kathy, would you like to make any comments or ask any questions?
No, I don't think so. I think that Craig pretty much said anything I wanted to say about it.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Are there any comments or questions from the committee? Nope. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to number 6.
I can propose a comments
Mhm.
for the committee. I would suggest 3A and 2B.
Yep.
Public comments are received in support of the application, the effect of which resulted in a decision to approve the application. And Huron County Public Works provided comments with no concerns, so there was no effect on the decision.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 7. That minor variance D13-MVO1-2023 Robinson be approved as per the attached decision sheet. Do I have a mover? Moved by member Dietrich and a seconder, Vice Chair Oak, and all in favor? Okay. And that motion carries. Move on to item number 8, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, member Dietrich, seconded by